In case you haven't heard, Maggie Rogers is a relatively new star on the rise who keeps on rising. Back in July of 22, she released her sophomore album, Surrender, and in this video we're going to be showcasing and reviewing one of the hits from the album, That's Where I Am. Hang tight. Hey music lovers, my name is Francis and welcome to Music Kingdom. If you'd like to support myself and the work I put into these videos, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support the channel further, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. Now before we listen and review the song, let's briefly talk Maggie Rogers. She got her small-scale start back in 2012, and over the years she did open for a number of notable artists and bands. Then it wasn't until her time at the New York University Institute of Recorded Music that Pharrell Williams, the musician, heard one of her original tracks, and a video of it moving him to tears went viral, and shortly after that record labels were contacting her for a record deal. Ultimately it would be Capitol Records. However, she licenses her music to Capitol Records, which is very clever in the sense of it giving her more control over her sound and her image. And in case you didn't know, the industry today, on the business side, they're really wanting songs to be products that can sell, and it's a never-ending kind of arm wrestle between them and the artist who wants their authenticity and artistry to shine instead. And what ends up happening a lot of the time are these artists giving control to these record labels so that a lot of their sound and their image and how it's marketed to people ends up being very generic. So Maggie Rogers licensing her music instead to Capitol Records gives her that control, and in my opinion is why her music is in a way refreshingly good by a lot of today's standards, and why I was a fan of her 2022 sophomore album, Surrender. One of the more popular songs on the album would be the second track, That's Where I Am, written by Maggie Rogers and Thomas Hull, which is what we're showcasing and reviewing today. And something to keep an ear out for ahead of time would be, in my opinion, the clever lyrics with the twist of optimism, a certain 2000s nostalgic aesthetic and atmosphere, and an unexpectedly sharp and sophisticated production. Be sure to stick around afterwards for a musical analysis by our expert, and then we're going to break down the song into various categories and give it an overall score.
I found a reason to wake up, coffee in my cup, start a new day. Wish we
Already you can appreciate the production. Little details.
Mistakes that we made, but it all works out in the end. Wherever you go, that's where I am. Boulders turn into sand. Wherever you go,
Very pretty lyrics.
that's where I am.
There it is. Oh my god, it's very well done.
Now when I wait in your doorway, covered in flowers, I think of her. Did she know that we were together?
It's so well put together.
You never touched me, but I felt you
letting it breathe. Great addition of the guitar.
No, I'll never find another. No one else can do it better. When we're together, it feels like heaven. You're the only one I ever wanted. All I ever really wanted was you.
This is a hell of a bridge.
No, I'll never find another. No one else can do it better. When we're together, it feels like heaven. You're the only one I ever wanted. All I ever really wanted was you. It all works out in the end.
Production and harmonies. There's a lot of layers going on. I love when artists repeat part of the bridge in the final chorus. Very clever. Very tasteful outro. It's very well put together, very well produced. Initial thoughts. If this is an example, albeit a small sample size, of where pop is right now, or perhaps where pop is heading, I would say it's in great hands, at least with someone like Maggie Rogers, because generally speaking, personally, I'm just not partial to the overall genre of pop. However, when there is a degree of artistry or inspiration or sophistication, then absolutely I can really get into it and appreciate it, because otherwise, to really generalize, that is what the genre itself is missing. A lot of inspiration, artistry, and sophistication, talent in a business that is very much a business. Now, I want to acknowledge that Maggie Rogers is not necessarily a pop artist, nor is that song a pop song. I would describe her more as singer-songwriter, and technically speaking, that song could pass for indie pop, alt pop, pop rock, a pop rock ballad. So there are different ways to describe it, and I don't mean to generalize it too much under one big umbrella of pop, but since that is kind of its feel, its vibe, and because it's a hit, I digress. If you're going to make a mainstream pop hit, do it that way. Nail it, slay it, make it refreshing, make it interesting, make it quality. Now, without further ado, let's jump to the expert's corner and get his take and a musical analysis of the song, and then after that we're going to break down the song into categories and give it an overall score.
Welcome to the Expert's Corner. I'm John Paul, and this is Maggie Rogers' That's Where I Am. This song is in the time signature of 4/4, and it's in the key of D major. Let me walk you through the main chord progression that repeats itself throughout the whole song. Now, I said main chord progression, but it's actually just the only chord progression. It's D major, A minor, C major, G major. Rinse and repeat. It's actually a cool chord progression. You don't hear it very often in pop music, and I like that. It's actually pretty similar to George Michael's Freedom 90. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it's pretty close. So I listened to this song a few times, and I think it's a fun, catchy song. They do some neat, playful things production-wise, like sampling her voice and turning it kind of into a synth instrument of its own. It just feels like a nice, polished product, and to me, it personally gives me early 2000s vibes. Something about it feels like a throwback. But in my personal opinion, it's not the greatest thing. It's a bit repetitive, and to me it's just nothing too special. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Back to you, Francis.
A very special thank you to our musical expert for giving us his take and giving the song a very healthy 6 out of 10, which is one of 6 categories that we are going to go over, grading them each so that we can arrive at the overall song score. Starting out with composition, coincidentally, I'm giving the song a 6 out of 10. I think it is very melodically pretty, however, its composition structurally is very basic, is very general, and very normal for its genre of music, which would usually get a 5 out of 10. However, in my opinion, it is a pretty enough melody to where, let's say you strip away the production and throw the song on the piano as a ballad, it probably is a very gorgeous tune. So for that, I'm giving it a bonus point. Overall, a 6. Up next, we have production, which I'm giving a very strong 8 out of 10. In my opinion, this is my favorite aspect of the song, and it's done so tastefully, at least given its genre. In my opinion, the addition of the guitar, the sophistication of little details that you might want to hear the song a number of more times to really grasp, little subtleties in its production, in its beat, in its groove, in its hook, with the addition of the harmonies and the reverb on the harmonies, and how everything is so beautifully tied together, the build up to start the song, and then the mellowed out bridge of the song, climaxing in the final chorus of the song. It is so tastefully done, and it doesn't feel generic. It feels, to me, artistic. So in my opinion, that is always going to warrant something like an 8. Lastly, on the subject of production, something that really grabbed me about the song from the first time I heard it was this nostalgic 2000s feel. Yes, you can tell it's current. Yes, you can tell it's produced by the standards of 2022. However, there's something familiar with it, and that really drew me in, and I really think they nailed that. And then I would eventually find out in an interview, Maggie Rogers said that it was inspired by a 2000s rom-com feel. So I felt very validated that it wasn't just in my head, this certain nostalgic aesthetic that they really nailed. So I give really high praise to the production. Moving on to lyrics, I'm giving them a very respectable 7.5 out of 10. In my opinion, this is a well-written song, so much so that in the beginning, before I really dug into my research and found out for sure what the song was about, I was getting vibes of spiritualism or spirituality with phrases like wherever you go, that's where I am. I was already going down this mental rabbit hole of the lyrics having some deep, profound spiritual meaning to them. So that's what I initially thought. And then of course, upon further research, ultimately it is about a relationship, as most songs in the music industry are. However, I found it was still a refreshing take on a subject like that. While it is revisiting the memory of a past relationship, there is a very refreshing twist of optimism and acceptance and maturity in the lyrics. However, they're not necessarily complex. It's not necessarily insanely poetic. So for that reason, I'm not gonna give it an 8, 9, or a 10. 7.5 is very respectable for what it is. After that, we have vocals, which I'm giving a 6 out of 10. Now, that's not to say that Maggie Rogers as a vocalist is only capable at best of a 6, because if you listen to the rest of this album, she has a lot of songs where they're very strong vocally, where I'd probably give them a 7 or an 8. However, in this song specifically, it's not necessarily the most skillful vocal performance, nor is there a lot of versatility with belting or falsetto or vibrato, stuff like that. So as a song specifically, it doesn't blow me out of the water. She does have a nice voice and it works beautifully with the vibe of the song, do not get me wrong. But if middle of the road is a 5, I do think she's better than the middle of the road in this song, which is a 6, but because it's nothing necessarily more awe-inspiring, a 6 is well deserving. Arriving at our final category of originality and or inspiration, I'm giving the song a very strong 8 out of 10. As mentioned earlier, if you're going to do a pop song, do it like this. Make it feel fresh. Give the lyrics a certain new twist or a new flavor. Make the production feel smart and sophisticated as opposed to generic. And if you do further research on the song and how she came to create the song and write the song, you find that it is very inspired. Even though, say, her inspiration, a lot of it was from a 2000s nostalgic rom-com, that is original. That is a fresh perspective, a fresh taste to give a song in today's day and age, which for me, whenever I come across that nowadays in music, I do have to give it its kudos, I do have to give it its respect and appreciation, which is what prompted me to make this video in the first place. She's not necessarily huge, I know a lot of people know Maggie Rogers, but I wanted to showcase what a great example of an inspired pop song can be. Add it all up, throw in the expert score, and average it out. That's Where I Am by Maggie Rogers off of her 2022 album Surrender. Gets a very respectable 6.9, which will round up to a 7 out of 10. As mentioned, a very welcome song and a very welcome album in today's industry. While I won't claim to be Maggie Rogers' biggest fan by any stretch of the imagination, I'm absolutely rooting for her. I love what she brings to the table, I find her very refreshing, and I love that she's licensing her music to Capitol Records, keeping more control of herself as an artist. In the comments below, let me know what you think of Maggie Rogers, and of course what other music you'd like for me to review as well, which is what we do on this channel. And again, if you'd like to support myself and the work I put into these videos, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support the channel further, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. This has been another edition of Music Kingdom. Thank you so much for listening with me, and I look forward to jamming with you in the next one.